Allow me to acknowledge the presence of the Minister of Health, a man who really should be very exhausted by now. I don't know how he survives this, because many of us are so tired. It's just unbelievable. The period of COVID has really challenged a number of our people. Program Director, allow me to pay my respects to Comrade Sandy and the children. To Ndade Maharaj, I'm happy to see you, Comrade Mac. But it's just unbelievable that we don't see you around. We just see you once in a while on TV doing some interview. We're so used to having you amongst us. It's good to see you. The family of General Vejay, members of the profession which he committed himself to. I saw Obudiliza and I was very happy, very excited, but I realized that because I was wearing a mask, he didn't see me. And I must say that I was touched by the words of the comrade and the doctor who gave a vote of thanks. I think this gathering, Comrade Vijay, has brought together all your comrades, and the pain that we are feeling is palpable. Acting Chief General Mapwanya, Sergeant General Acting, now your surnames, the two of you, General Mapwanya and Mapaha. Ex-political prisoners were here who served with Comrade Vijay. I saw Comrade Mpo, at some point Comrade Mpo Masemula, and all those who served in the underground with Comrade Vijay. Before I make my speech, very brief, I must say, I should say one of the things which really deeply touched me, Minister, and 2-3 other speakers were here, is the recognition which you gave to Sandy, the acknowledgement of the role she played, not as a partner, but as an individual, as a woman who was courageous and brave enough to be there, and today she's counted amongst those who defeated this regime. I'm very happy about it. I'm very touched by that, because most of the time, when you are associated with a politician, you're like an appendage. People see you as an appendage of so-and-so, and not as a person who contributed in the struggle, young as you were, in your own right. Fellow mourners, it was just a week ago, on the evening of the 27th of August 2020, during our session with the Portfolio Committee on Defense and Military Veterans, that I received a WhatsApp message from Comrade Jesse informing me about the passing of Lieutenant General Vijay. Now, you will not imagine the kind of confusion I was in, because the Portfolio Committee was expecting me to answer questions which they had for me, and I was trying to think around and worrying about how do I convey this to other comrades, but also to those who serve in the Portfolio Committee. I must say that I was left with trepidation, but nevertheless had to continue with the session. I deliberately mentioned this even as the General had left service just over 5 years ago. Regardless, it was the contribution he had made in the forging of our democracy and building the new defense establishment that made us stand back and remain shocked that one so young and who still had so much to give to our country had left us suddenly. Many a tribute has been made about the officer and the comrade lying before us. The General, to those who knew him in the service and even in his general life and demeanor, was steadfast, decisive, and stuck to his convictions. If he believed what he was to pursue was correct, nothing, absolutely nothing, could divert him from that goal. Even if you think it is wrong, if Vijay decides that what he wants to do is the right thing, then he will simply move on and he will do it. You, politician, you'll remain there and you can give political answers. That's Vijay. He integrated into the newly formed South African National Defence Force and straight into the South African Military Services, as it was then known, and later to what it is today, the SAMS, South African Military Health Services. Now, starting off integrating as a brigadier in the South African Military Services, he rose to be given the responsibilities not only within the South African Military Health Services, but across the South African National Defence Force, eventually landing the post of the most senior officer within the South African Military Health Services, the Surgeon General, which is a 3-star general officer. He could not have been better prepared with the various posts held, both within SAMS and in the corporate South African National Defence Force and the Department of Defence at large. There are some of those which were mentioned by General Mapwanya, but allow me to mention that one of the posts he held cemented what he had already learned whilst he was the Inspector General. For learn he did as he immersed himself into military and professional courses to enhance his knowledge in the auditing field, governance, accountability, leading to the audit committee placing more reliance on the internal audit function due to the work he was doing and ensuring that systems of control and accountability are in place. I'm mentioning this deliberately so, as there is a current focus by government to ensure that there's accountability in the manner in which we spend the monies, the taxpayers' money, and now in particular as it relates to expenditure on dealing with COVID-19. As the General Officer Commander of the Area Military Health of the South African Military Health Services, not only was he a soldier but also a medical doctor, whose medical experience exposed him to the health needs not only of our troops but those of ordinary citizens. He contributed immensely to the policies and health strategies and structures of the South African National Defence Force through the South African Military Health Services. Well, it has been mentioned that his leadership and skills were further proven when he led Operation Bata, which saw the South African Military Health Services take over 70 health facilities in the country during a crippling health practitioner strike for almost a month. That was a huge responsibility that was placed on Vijay's shoulders. A responsibility he carried with such professionalism and efficiency. The SANDF was able to mend those health facilities throughout the country and provided medical attention to the sick and vulnerable. That was not small feat that showed how professional he was in the field of medicine and on how to run a health facility. This showed the other side of him and of being a caring soldier who took the lives and health of not only soldiers but that of the public at large. Now, there's one thing which I must say about Vijay. He was not the kind of person who take things and people for granted. You know, we all meet, we have different responsibilities, and I do not remember once Vijay relating with me as, hey, no Siviwe this, hey, no Siviwe that. But he knew who I was, he knew where I come from, he knew I was his comrade, but there was a relationship of mutual respect. Now, Vijay, even if he was going to differ with you on a matter, he would find sometimes rather sarcastic, but he would just find a way of making you feel good about what you are about to do, even though he'll say, I differ with you. I don't think this is the route to go, my minister, because I arrived just a year before he retired. However, if this is what you want, full force I'm behind you, I'll support you. There was a time when there was a bit of a challenge in 2013 where there were a lot of articles in the media that doctors were exiting the South African Military Health Services. And I kept on asking and expecting answers, and I could not get answers. And people kept on sending me articles, even from Afrikaans papers, doctors are leaving. But what troubled me was that the doctors were not leaving because they wanted to go for greener pastures and make money. They were moving from the Department of Defense, from SAMS, through to the Department of Health. And that's what was making me very upset. So I decided to put together a team led by Professor Mokhalepuru and other doctors. And I said, please help, just investigate what is this. And it took them about 6 months to do this work. Now Vijay, in his own way, when I wanted to do this, he wasn't sure. He wasn't in the department in SAMS at the time. He was in the office of the chief. He wasn't sure if that was the correct route to take. But he nonetheless said, I commit to give you all the support which you need. But guess what? When we subsequently received that report, the findings and the recommendations which were contained in the report, and when we shared those, he was very quick to say, yeah, I knew this one would come out. I knew that one. In a very, not in an apologetic manner, not in a patronizing manner, but he took responsibility. Well, Minister, I knew this one would come out. I knew that one would come out. But at the time, remember, he wasn't the Surgeon General anymore. I found that very, very interesting about him. Now, I would like to share a bit. I've not read Vijay's book, which talks about him as the doctor to Tata Madiba. I am yet to do that. But I do want to say this, that Vijay had a very special relationship with Madiba. It was an extraordinary kind of situation. Even though he wasn't, when Tata passed on in 2013, he wasn't the Surgeon General. But when Tata passed on that night, in his house, Vijay was there because throughout he had never left his bedside. When Tata was at the heart clinic, I recall, most sometimes power, somebody else had just come in and taken over. Now Vijay had now moved to another position, and sometimes you could see that a person doesn't understand why is he here, because you'll wake up in the morning 7 o'clock, Vijay, you'll find Vijay in hospital, and you'll be received by him. When you leave the hospital or when you come, the last thing you do in the evening before you go back home, you'll still find Vijay at the hospital, together with the rest of the team which was looking after Madiba. Now, when Tata passed on, the house was full. Mama Winnie was there, Mama Grasa was there. I had received a call to say, Minister, will you please come to the house? It was around 6 in the afternoon, late afternoon, early evening. And I was preparing to leave the country at 8 o'clock that night. Went to the house and I found many of our stalwarts of the movement. I walked in and I saw Vijay and he said, please come through. Up the stairs to the room where Tata was lying. Tata was still alive then. Now, next to Tata, there was Mama Grasa to the left, and to the right, there was Mama Winnie. Now, obviously, everybody by then were saying their goodbyes to the old man. At least of the group which was in there of men, the one person I saw with his tears running down his cheeks was Vijay. Vijay could not believe what was happening. Vijay was so attached to the old man. Vijay, I guess the relationship was such that they were able to share certain things together, but I saw his tears running down his cheeks. Now, military protocol can be very funny at times, but maybe good because it's very disciplined. The reason why I was called in there was for the people who were there, the Surgeon General, to inform me in the event something were to happen, and for me to call the chief to inform the chief, or for them to call the chief in order for the chief to call me to inform me, those kinds of processes, and then for us to go and inform the Commander-in-Chief, the President. We went, had a lengthy discussion, but I want to say, in the course of the sadness, the confusion, the shock, what I found very striking was that the Defense Force had prepared so well for the passing on of Udada. It was a matter of opening a drawer or a safe, take out a script, and go through everything by the book as written on that piece of paper. So there was no confusion. The confusion was amongst us because we were shocked, but they knew exactly what they were going to do at what time and when. And Vijay was amongst people who developed that plan. And I used to panic, I should say, during that period. I would go to the chief and say, Chief, it doesn't look good. Do you think we are ready? Chief Shoke. And you know, the chief would always say in his own way, don't worry, Minister, don't worry, we are ready. If it happens, we'll simply open and get our piece of paper and we'll run things according to what is written on that paper. What I'm trying to illustrate here is just how organized Vijay was. And I think also his skill in the underground helped him in a very big way. I never heard you would go to Vijay and say something that I suspect you need to go and help there. I suspect there's something, I don't know what it is because I'm not a doctor, but I think you need to go there. You will not hear about it because Vijay will simply go to where you've asked him to go and do what he's supposed to do as a doctor, and he will not even come back and give you a response. He will simply say, it's attended to, mission accomplished. That was the kind of person Vijay was. And I should say to you, family, because sometimes we do forget that we do all these things because we have your support. You never refused. You never held him back and stopped him from doing the work of the organization and from serving the nation. It was very dramatic indeed when Vijay appeared before the TRC. I recall very well some of the things he said at the TRC. And now, this is no insult. This is our language sometimes. It's like umalanje. So sizathi xa sibona umalanje athetha sithi India lethu ke lelo. That's our Indian, that one. So it would, and not in a sarcastic manner. Or umlungu, a white man and umlungu would say something sithi umlungu wethu ke lo. And it applied to Vijay as well, that we would say India lethu ke lelo. Because of just how brave he was, how eloquent he was, how he could present issues, and how he presented himself, by the way, before the TRC. And I think what I want to say as my parting shot here, because a lot of what I wanted to say was said by my chief about the Defense Force and his role. I want to make a plea to all of us to start writing our story. Honestly, Butterfly Group, Comrade Zweli, Comrade Dlomo, must write about their operations, the things they did, because South Africans don't know. The biggest problem about us is that our history is being written by people who are not South Africans, who come from across the shore, and they come to South Africa and they start penning the story of South Africans. There are very few, like Comrade Maharaji, who have decided to pen their history. Most of our comrades, including the story of Chisani, was not written by one amongst us here. It was written by somebody, perhaps I don't know the person, maybe others know, but he wrote or she wrote the book nonetheless, and the book is there. And when you read the book, sometimes you pick up so many inaccuracies. So let us write our story. Let us tell our children what we had to endure. Rosa, write the story of what your mother had to go through. Interview your mother, record your mother, because she doesn't have the time. And write the story of what she had to go through with you in a prison cell with you. Do that. And this is what we are advocating for. This is what we've been talking about to our young people. Our young people don't understand the story of the South African people. We may be in denial sometimes about it. We see it every day in our own homes, in our own families. You listen to children coming back from school and you hear some of the things, the history, the struggle of the people of South Africa, according to some of these schools, began in 1990 when Madiba came out. For those of us who have small ones, grandchildren, when Madiba came out, that's when the struggle of the peoples of South Africa began. And yet we know that Madiba himself served so many, and his comrades, so many years in prison. And we have the likes of Vijay. Vijay? Lala kakuhle ndoda. Lala kakuhle mfowethu. You were one of the few who would always carry your, I don't know what you call it, General Mapaya, 3-star, SAMs. Vijay would always carry his small stick, put it under his arm. Vijay. Doesn't matter if we had a meeting of the National Executive Committee and Vijay had to see somebody at the meeting of the NEC. Vijay would always be well-dressed, very neat, and carry his small stick under his arm. That, to me, was a demonstration of the commitment, of the dedication of the man. He was very stubborn. Vijay could be very stubborn. Now, Vijay, I'm grateful that I've had the honor to be amongst those who are here to bid you farewell. But I also want to say something to you. There's something you owe me. And I wish in my dreams you will come and tell me where it is. He was so grounded in the underground of Vijay that Comrade Meg, because it's your training, there are things Vijay has never to date disclosed where they are. I guess because he was only 62, none of us ever anticipated that he would be gone so soon. Hamba Vijay, sisatsala sisaqhuba. Hayi kunzima, and it's tough. The reactionary forces are also up. They are challenging the authority of your organization. But of course, we also do have those amongst us who have probably disappointed you where you are. But our message to you is just keep on guiding us. We believe that you are not away. Your spirit will live amongst us, and you will always whisper to us those messages where you want to correct and show us the right way to go. Now Zweli is dealing with COVID-19. Continue to engage with him. Tell him which direction to go. It's not easy because doctors, fortunately the room is full of doctors, virus, and we are so excited. Some of us are victims of the virus already. But then you see in the news, somebody says, well, we are not ruling out its second wave around November, and it's so traumatizing. The whole thing is very traumatic. But you know it's gone, our numbers have gone down. Now you hear second wave is likely to come, and you put your hands on your head and say, but now what are we going to do? But you know what? Thank you. Thank you. Because one of the things we do not do as comrades, as colleagues, is to give support to one another and to pat one another on our shoulders and say, well done. And say, well done. You have done very well. I mean, I know there were very difficult debates at times, and you stuck to what you believe is correct, advised by the scientists. Well done. I don't want us to say when you are lying here like Vijay, then we tell your children that, remember that year there was a pandemic? Your father did A, B, C, D, and E. No, we must tell you that you have done extraordinarily well. Thank you very much, colleagues. Thank you, family, Yaka Vijay, for giving your son to the nation, for allowing him to serve to the end. And I just hope that somebody will pick up his spear and write. From what I've heard, he had plans to continue to write. And I just hope somebody will have the courage to pick up that pen and continue to write like he did. Thank you very much.
Thank you. In tribute to Vijay Ramlakan, who passed away earlier, and of course Minister of Defense Mapisa-Nqakula speaking there about the legacy of the former Surgeon General Vejay Ramlakan, who will be late to rest this afternoon, and speaking very kindly about him, and also saying that he was very stubborn but also knew how to disagree with certain issues when they were sitting around deliberating on work-related matters. And of course she also remembered him as somebody who was dedicated and committed in his service. And it was also talked about his commitment to Madiba when he was still ill, that even when he was no longer the Surgeon General, he was right beside his bedside and giving all the support that he needed, because he knew him from afar. And of course he pleaded with those around that they should write stories, because sometimes when she reads books about the fallen comrades, she identifies some inaccuracies in the stories of what those who were involved in the struggle for liberation went through. So it's better to write their own stories, so that they shouldn't be told by those who come from afar, but rather those who are within the circle of experience regarding what the comrades went through when they were in the struggle. And of course she talked about a number of issues regarding the experience and the moving tribute, also not honoring the dead but also those who are still alive, speaking there about Dr. Zweli Mkhize, saying that she doesn't want to honor him when he has passed on, but she would rather speak to him when he's still alive today about the way he's handling the COVID-19 pandemic. And of course saying that she gets worried when she hears about the second wave of COVID-19 around November, and she wonders what would we go through, and when she just imagines that the numbers have gone down and we have actually beat this pandemic in a way, and then what if the second wave of the infections of COVID-19 happen in the country, what would she do? Well, that's a long and short of what's been happening at the funeral service of General Vejay Ramlakan, who will be late to rest today in KwaZulu-Natal in Durban. We're going to take a break and we'll be back.